Public's been busy with Irma.
Oh, and the first thing I wanted to do, that's right, I wanted to welcome, we have a member of our board here as a guest, Josh Schulman, who is the yeah, but you're the
Citizen representative.
That's right, thank you, the citizen representative for the board. And so we welcome you. I don't know if you had any comments you wanted to make to our TRAC committee, but.
No, I just, especially given the article that came out a month or so ago on board member experiences with riding on the buses. I do ride the bus, but not as frequently as others, and I thought this would be a great group to listen to directly as to what the experience is with riding the bus. So I'm going to try to attend as many of the TRAC meetings as I can.
Thank you.
Welcome.
We'd love to see you. Yeah, we have a good group, we feel, and please feel free to reach out to any of us with questions.
Will do.
Thank you. Okay, then the next item would be the chair's report, but because I was away last month, and usually I would report on the board meeting, I know you gave the report for
No, Marion,
the TRAC at the board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if there was anything. I did watch the board meeting on video, and I know they covered a number of items that have been covered in this meeting here. Was there anything in particular that you recall from the board meeting that was?
I know, you were so good to me, and you brought me the last month's board meeting agenda.
Budget.
I think that the biggest discussion was the budget. We did have our budget hearing on September 6th. There'll be a second budget hearing on Wednesday, so tomorrow night. And Debbie will present again. We are presenting the millage rate of 0.75, which is our max cap. We do have in our budget an estimate for bus purchases as far as the capital program, and we are estimating using the value of a hybrid electric bus. There is a longer term plan to include some other electric bus purchases in the plan, although there will be a discussion at the board about technologies, I think, maybe sometime soon, right? Possibly, yes. Any other issues or interesting things about the budget?
It's a good budget. We have a surplus that we're budgeting for next year. We have a lot of good passenger amenities that are in the budget also for 2018, as well as our hybrid electric buses. That is what we're assuming in next year's budget. Some technology improvements as well. And it's really, the team did a great job of putting it together this year.
You know, I watched the video of the board meeting, and the one thing that I thought was really interesting is there was that discussion about the bus purchases, and that, you know, how it had been a large purchase of buses at one point, and now how they're trying to make the buses last longer and then sort of stagger when new buses get bought so that they don't all have to be replaced at the same time. And I just thought that was a very smart way of looking at how you make the money go further and still maintain the safety of the buses that we're all riding.
So when we use federal dollars to buy a bus, the FTA says that a bus will last 12 years or 500,000 miles. Now, we run them much farther and longer. We have some very long routes, as you know, and we run them much longer than 500,000 miles, but we replace them generally in the past on a cycle of every 12 years, or the useful life of the bus. Henry and his team have been able to keep buses going 15 years or longer. So the oldest ones in our fleet right now are 2001, right? 2001, and we did have a large purchase at one time. It was an earmark from Bill Young, and so when all of those come due at the same time, it becomes a very difficult thing to manage. But Henry and his team have done an exceptional job. Yay, Henry!
Yeah, that was very interesting. Thank you for that. Oh, the other thing I want to say as part of the chair report is that I watched the video also of our last TRAC meeting, and I thought Mark did a fabulous job at chairing the meeting last time, so thank you very much. It really, I was like, hey, you all don't need me anymore. So, no, it was great. Thank you so much. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Forward Pinellas Report, and is there
I
any?
unfortunately missed the meeting, although, John.
John, are you there?
Yeah, it was a pretty typical meeting. Complete streets, we talked about the transportation disadvantage program. We are doing something similar. We talked about the letter, actually, that
I was just gonna
people
ask
were
it.
impressed with that, I remember. And they want us to do something similar, to focus on
This-
3 areas. We actually have a meeting tomorrow where we're gonna weed it down to 3 particular things. And then we're
3
gonna work-
issues from CAC?
Yeah, and then we're gonna work on a letter that we're gonna present to the board. So kind of like what we've done here. So that, and we talked about Central Avenue BRT. Those, just got this off the top of my head, those are the biggest things.
I might mention too that
Yes.
the TRAC committee meetings are archived on our site as well. So you can, we're live now, so you can pull up video of that as well, just review, just watch the meeting over. Also, for anybody who attends and wants to kind of just recap.
Good, thank you. Okay, the next, our only action item today is a review of the minutes. Have all of you had a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting? And do you have any comments, changes, corrections? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as published.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay. Second? Okay, Elizabeth's the second. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And then the first information item that we have is a presentation by Cassandra Borchers on the service promotion updates.
So, as you know, we do a lot in the community, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on some of the support that we're giving to community events, and in the form of park and ride options. You've seen what we've done for the Pride Parade. We're going to be doing something similar for Hispanic Heritage Festival, as well as the Clearwater Jazz Holiday. And so if people would like to take the bus, we don't want to go all the way into downtown Clearwater to park, people can park at the Joe DiMaggio parking lot on Drew Street, and we'll be running our regular service on the 76, but adding additional buses in to accommodate the crowds. And so I think that's a great way for us to use our regular routes in a way that is effective for getting people to the places they want to go without having to drive your car all the way into the festival. We've been asked by some board members to look at some other promotions for us to do. One would be extended service hours for New Year's Eve, and so our scheduling department is looking into that. And which routes would we do? We'd be looking at some events that are happening around the county to look at how we would extend service for that evening. And then last year, as you know, we did a strong promotion with the city of Clearwater, a park and ride to the beach during spring break. And so we're looking at ways to improve that service over last year, some lessons learned of us doing it in full force for the first time last year and how we would make that a little bit better. So just some ideas of things that we're working on that you could either use if you're going to go to Clearwater Jazz or Hispanic Heritage, or just to be aware of as you start to talk to people about things that we do in the community. So that was just a little bit of an update, just to make sure that you're aware of some of the things that we're working on behind the scenes. Yes, Liz?
Can I take a picture of those two things, Hispanic Heritage and Clearwater Jazz, and put it on Facebook?
Yes, you may.
Okay, thank you.
And the question I have, Cassandra, do you want any input from any of us regarding that in terms of what, is there an official way in which we should, or just that people should just contact you, hey, what about this idea or that idea?
Yeah, you can certainly tell me here during the meeting, if you said, have you thought about supporting this, this particular event? We usually like to be in the room with event organizers, like during the Pride Parade organization, we were in with everything, sort of part of the promotional materials. We're also talking to Sugar Sands about being in their promotional materials. So if there's other events that you know that you think that we should be engaged with, then we'd be happy to, you can either tell me here or send me an email.
Any other questions or comments to Cassandra? Thank you very much. Okay, our next item is a presentation regarding the Tampa Bay Next from, we are going to have Chris Spies here.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me today. Brian had come to me last week and asked me to come talk to you guys today about Tampa Bay Next. So, to keep me on track and to give you something better to look at in this mug, I'm going to give you a couple pictures here. Just help you along. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay. So, just to start, my name is Chris Spies. I am the District 7 Public Involvement and Bicycle Pedestrian Coordinator for FDOT. Like I said, I'm here to talk today about Tampa Bay Next, TB Next. Basically, the first thing, I guess, to set the stage for what it is it's not a project. It's a process or a program. And basically, our goal with this is to basically look at modernizing the infrastructure and prepare for the future of the region by taking a step back and looking at some of the issues that we're faced with, not just for Pinellas County but also the surrounding Tampa Bay area. We're growing at a substantial rate, and it poses some substantial some substantial issues when it comes to transportation in the region. So one of the things that we wanted to look at was going and taking a step back and having a process where we work with the community to try and come up with ideas and an action plan for how to address those ever-changing needs that we have in this area. So a big part of this program process is some major tenets, and it's not just about getting one vehicle from point A to point B. We're looking at interstate modernization. There's a few parts of the interstate that need to be upgraded and designed is out of date for the changes that we're being faced with. We're looking for ways to improve transit. Now that we have the opportunity that we're revamping the system, how do we get people, with different modes? Bicycle pedestrian facilities too are a big component of what we're looking at, especially from my position in the department. I'm trying to push for those kind of modes as well. Taking a look at things from our new direction with our complete streets policy, and trying to look at things from a context-sensitive solution, building the right roads for the right places. We're also looking at innovative transportation solutions, not just looking at basically going out there and widening a roadway to add more volume, but if there's other ways to be able to provide ways and means for people to get to where they're going, and I'll get into a little bit of that here very shortly. And also freight mobility as well that we take into consideration. Sometimes we talk about roads and vehicles and stuff, we kind of oversight some of those topics. So basically the issues that we face with this ever-growing region basically come down to 4 distinct areas. Design is the first thing. Design basically comes down to 2 of our major interchanges in the Tampa Bay area. The West Shore and the downtown interchanges are basically need to be upgraded. There's quite a few pinch points in the area, which cause a lot of the traffic congestion that we're having right now. So we need to go back and look at trying to fix those bottlenecks when we go back and look at how we fix these issues. The next is demand, and I got into that a little bit before. The population explosion in this area is unprecedented. It's impressive to see how quickly the areas are growing, not just here, but in the outer-lying areas and also in the adjacent counties. We have to find a way to accommodate this population growth, and this is one of the things that we really need to look at when we're looking at this improvements from a regional perspective. Choice is also one of the biggest things. We lack transportation choices in this region, and we need to add more options. And this is the opportunity that we have now when we're looking at this to try and implement many more choices to provide for all the users of our network. And then finally, probably the most important thing is consensus. We have to build consensus and basically talk to the communities and get input from what they want and basically determine a clear path forward for what a direction for the entire region wants, not just for specific neighborhoods or not just for specific agencies, but our region as a whole. So this basically just shows you a quick map of the projects broken down and the PD&E, basically the PD&E schedules that are currently underway. And the public hearings that are coming up. Right now, the Howard Franklin, well, I'm sorry, let me jump back a second. The Gateway Expressway project is currently underway. They just had the public hearing back in September 2015. That project is actually just starting to get moving here in the construction phase. The Howard Franklin Bridge project is scheduled for public hearings. There's going to be 2 of them in November on the 14th and the 16th, and I'll have to look because I always get the 2 confused. One's going to be on the Hillsborough side, and the other one's going to be on the Pinellas side, since the Howard Franklin Bridge serves both counties. But it also gives you an idea, a little bit of the challenge when you look at this map. And this is a good map to show you the breakdown of some of the projects, but this map gives you a little bit better idea of what TB Next is and what we're trying to address. It's not just the major interstate roadways, but it's also the adjacent roadways that connect to it, how to serve them, how to make this all work together. We have quite a bit of interstate, and we also have some unique challenges, especially with the amount of bridges across the bay and the way especially with Pinellas County, how it's structured. It's very limited with your choices if you have to get from Pinellas County out of the county to one of the adjacent counties. So it definitely provides some challenges on that front. Just make sure I'm not missing anything. So one of the big efforts that we're working on right now in regards to TV Next is basically getting that public input, trying to work towards building that consensus and getting input on basically how the community wants to see these projects and how they want to see this program developed and how it could better serve them and their needs. So there's a lot of different efforts going on. Probably the easiest one I'll start with is our website, which is tampabaynext.com. We have a lot of information on there, basically any of the upcoming events. Where we're going to be putting up the Howard Franklin Bridge public hearing dates here very shortly with the information. It has a separate website where that's located, but it's easier for me just to tell you, go to tampabaynext.com, and that's where you can get all your information because we can steer you towards that direction. We also have the ability where on that website, people can place their comments if they don't feel like calling or coming to us in general at some of our meetings. They can just send in their comments, whether it be their contact information or anonymously, whatever they feel more comfortable with. There's also the ability that they could request us to come out to them and present regarding this program and the projects that are currently underway to any of the groups or agencies that would be interested in hearing more about the program and the projects that are involved with this. We're also rolling out, actually, bear with me here because Irma's got us all, our schedules all mixed up here, so I'm trying to remember. It's called a Citizens Transportation Academy. And a lot of the things that we've seen in the last 2 years, at least in my experience, is a lot of the public has a very hard understanding of, or a very hard time understanding the complexities of the steps and the processes that have to go through and the different things that have to be taken into consideration when doing these kind of projects. What we're trying to do is basically provide them with an opportunity to, it's basically a weekly webinar on Fridays at noon. And basically you can go to the TampaBayNext.com website and join in there, or we'll have them videotaped afterwards where basically you can just go back on your own time and look anytime you want to. And they're basically going to explain about a lot of the planning process and basically project development and some of the other facets that go into basically this whole program and the process involved with it. Basically just to give a general understanding and basically understand a little bit more of, we hear a lot, why is this taking so long? Why, what are the issues? Why, I can't understand why you guys can't just go out and do this right now. And this at least gives them a little bit better understanding of basically what's involved and how thorough this process is and the steps that need to be taken care of before moving forward with the project. There's also community working groups. I'm not sure if you guys have been involved in that yet or have heard a little bit about it. Let's see here. There we go. Basically, what we were looking for, the community working groups, is a big part of going out to the public and getting that community engagement and getting that input from the stakeholders, as well as getting the outreach from not only a local perspective but a regional perspective. Basically, we're trying to provide more opportunities for the public to help shape what Tampa Bay Next will be and what it's looking forward to. This gives you a little bit more of an idea. Right now, there's 6 community working groups. We basically broke it up regionally and tried to identify some specific groups, but also opened it and advertised it to the public for each one. Downtown East Tampa is one. There's the West Shore area, Pinellas County, North and West Hillsborough, East Hillsborough, Polk County, and Pasco and Hernando County. We are getting ready to schedule our second community working group for Pinellas, and what I've been told right now is it's going to be sometime later in the fall. I didn't get an exact date yet, so you just have to stay tuned to the website. That's the easiest way, and they do a really good job of keeping everything on the community outreach calendar posted to see what's coming up and what's happening.
Those community working groups, are those the same people that get together, or is that the kind of thing where if members from this committee wanted to be involved with the Pinellas Community Working Group, how would we do that, or would we do that?
You are all more than welcome, and it would be great if you guys could participate, and we would really like to get your input on this. One of the things that I've seen so far from this, now, there's ones for each region. So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to gather information from the Pinellas County group. We're trying to, from the downtown Tampa. The downtown Tampa seems to have been the most vocal group because they don't like the impacts that are going on with the interchanges right now. Yes, ma'am.
I think that we could make sure that we get an invitation, so we can make sure that you all get the invitation. From what I understand from Secretary Gwynn is they are going to add another working group in Pinellas. So there'll be a North Pinellas working group and a South Pinellas working group, and so you can go to one or both or either, if you depending on what dates they make available, and then where you live.
Thank you. Excellent point. So yes, we'll get the information out to you, and anybody that's interested in coming, we'd love to have you. Some more information. That you're impressed with certain, and I know as a committee, there's a lot of things that you guys see from your perspective that may not be seen or taken into consideration from other ones, and you really you get a different perspective, and it helps shape that vision moving forward with this program by having that perspective, and so it would definitely help if you guys could attend. That would be fantastic.
The last time they had them, the working groups were workshops that were run by Collaborative Labs at St. Pete College. It was very interesting, and people really did get a chance to have a dialogue as opposed to just a question and answer session.
Yes.
Very well
It's
done.
not just going to be us up talking in front. It's very interactive, and they have a very interesting tool that they have gathering the input from each of the teams when they break out, and input from each of the groups. So it's definitely not a boring afternoon, and it's definitely very productive, and we get some really good information from it that helps us move forward with getting this information. So, one of the things I also wanted to take, I think I gleamed over this earlier, is some of the public input that we've gotten from before that we're taking into consideration already in regards to some of the innovative ways of looking at this. Isn't just about widening a roadway to make for because of the extra demand that we have. We're looking at different things that the public have suggested. We're looking at a beltway around the region. We're looking at I think there was a tunnel option. There was also, let me make sure I get this right, it's called a boulevard option for I-275, basically where they would take out I-275 and make it at grade, and basically be removing the interstate and making it more of a less limited access roadway, more full access roadway. So we're taking all those options into consideration, taking a look at them, weighing out what can happen, and there's definitely some interesting ones that we get for each of them, but they have some definitely some positives in each of the proposals. So we're taking all that into consideration as we move forward. And as I said, this is where we're at with the community working groups and some of the other opportunities that we have for public engagement. We'd love to have your input and your perspective as we move forward with this project, or this program, excuse me. So any and all help would be, and input would be greatly appreciated. And that's about all I have. So if you guys have any more questions, I'd love to help you with that.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I read an article a month or two ago where Secretary Gwynn met with the Times editorial board. It was on a Friday, I remember, and he said that in the meantime, between now and when this project's done, they could alleviate the bottleneck on the northbound from the 275 bridge, the West Shore. But they never went into any detail, and he just said it would cost at least $25 million, which,
Right.
At least. Do you know anything?
I know we were looking into that, and I think because he didn't have a lot of details at the time, but that was something that we were looking into. There are some, I can't remember the terminology that we have for it, like some quick fixes. I think they were calling it like a punch throw. I'm not sure why they were calling it that, but basically where they would basically be eliminating and I guess what do you call it, wanting to eliminate those bottlenecks temporarily. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done on those interchanges because they're substandard with how they function at this time that need to be addressed. But that definitely would help alleviate some of the issues in the short term.
So I was just at the St. Pete Chamber this morning where Secretary Gwynn was the speaker, and that's the project that he talked about, so that the 60 interchange, which is what creates the bottleneck, or creates the issue on the Howard Franklin Bridge when you're going northbound, taking that from 2 lanes to 3 lanes, and that would be the punch through or the interim project. Understanding that you'd have to then get a 3-lane section and when you get through that interchange as well. But that was some of the interim projects that they could do. Another interim project that they're talking about is if you ride on 275, you'll notice, especially northbound, from downtown St. Pete to Gandy, how many times you have to change lanes, right? So this is the lane continuity study that the department's been working on for a number of years. That was not a high priority for them, but it seems like it might get in the work program process, maybe on this cycle, in which case it would be one of those projects that they could do as an operational fix rather than a major capital investment like some of the other projects that they're talking about here. So I think that Pinellas County is going to benefit greatly from this discussion on Tampa Bay Next. I think that what the Secretary said this morning about looking at all of the options, including transit and how that fits into what the department's role in transportation is, which is really moving at a regional level. I think transit is going to be at the table when they, as they get through this process. And some of the projects that they're talking about, like an new intermodal center in Gateway, will also be important to us, PSTA, in how we reshape some of our projects in our system. So when we're talking about how does the 100X connect into downtown Tampa, or how does it come down to downtown St. Pete, going through that intermodal center is going to be key. How we're going to reroute the 300X to go through that wherever it may be. And so we're watching closely what they're doing, but we're really engaged in the projects that are coming out of this concept and this program.
Yes, sir.
So on one of your maps, you had the ferry service from downtown St. Pete to downtown Tampa. Does anybody know what the latest on that is?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I have my notes back on my thing. Probably. I missed the meeting this morning with the secretary, so she has more information than I do currently.
The ferry for the Cross Bay Ferry did get a service development grant this year to the tune of about $400,000. It isn't what it needs to operate fully. What I heard this morning was that there may not be enough time between now and their normal cycle. Well, their last year they ran from November to May, I think it was, from November to April. They need to get those funding agreements in place. The service development grant program pays up to half of an operations cost of a new service, but it has to have a 50-50 match. And so those funding agreements still need to be in place. So city staff felt that while it is possible to have service this year, it is probably more likely for them to take the next few months to get their ducks in a row to have the Cross Bay Ferry service operating next year.
So are these going to be the cities that are basically going to provide that half funding, St. Pete and Tampa?
I haven't heard anything different than that. Like how it was funded last time was cost sharing between Pinellas County, Hillsborough County, Tampa, and St. Pete.
So there won't be anything this year then?
Chances of there actually being service this year are slim, being that it's
Okay.
almost middle of
Timing.
September, and I don't think they have the funding commitments lined up.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Go back a couple slides to the map you had. It's hard to see the legend. Could you just go through that? Yeah, there's the one after this one.
Oh, this one?
Yeah, could you go through that? I just couldn't see the legend. I imagine it's highlighting some of the
Yeah, I'm
next
sorry.
priorities.
Yeah, the red is the interstate, the interstate modernization projects. The orange is the main regional arterials. The green is bicycle and pedestrian. And then there's just icons for airports, the ferry ports. The T's are the intermodal center study areas. And then the dark and light brown are freight centers, existing and planned. Existing is the dark, and the light is planned freight centers.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Oh, very welcome.
Anything else? Anyone else? Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate that. And
Thank you.
Thank you all.
okay, and then the last item on our agenda then will be James talking about our favorite hurricane this year.
No.
Hopefully the only
Yeah.
one that gets a lot of discussion.
Appreciate it. Good to meet you too.
Good afternoon, everyone. James Bradford, Chief Operating Officer. Thanks again, as always. My pleasure to be here with you all. I love this committee, and I hope to get some good questions off this next topic. I'm sure you all have some for me. So, all right, let me boot my. I'm going to first just start you off with a video, which will kind of open up to. I want to give you a little bit of a discussion of behind the scenes of what PSCA goes through during one of these events, during preparing for a hurricane, what happens during, what happens after, how do we kind of come up with our decisions of when to suspend service, how do we deal with operators. Obviously there's employees that need to go and prepare for their homes, if you're in a VAC A or B, for example, and so there's a lot of different things that kind of happen that you might be interested to know. Also interested to see from your perspective what you heard about us or what you experienced, because we always want to get better at these type of things. So we have an excellent video that was created and done by our amazing media and marketing department that kind of gave a little bit of a summary of what PSA went through during Hurricane Irma. So I'm going to start us out with that.
It's Friday, everybody, and I know the whole community has really had a really tough week getting through Hurricane Irma. I really hope that our customers are safe, and I am just so grateful for the men and women of PSTA who have gotten us through this really tough storm, led by our Director of Safety and Security, Mike Gloss.
Well, thank you, Brad. Yes, here at PSTA, we take hurricanes very seriously. We do have detailed plans in place to handle just such a storm.
That's right. My role as the CEO of PSTA was really just to ensure that we followed those plans. But really, the hard work all throughout the storm was done by the folks in this building, our operations division.
I spent my days and nights at the Pinellas County Emergency Operating Center, so that way when calls came through, we could get the buses out to the people who needed them.
And it could be at a nursing home, it could be at school, it could be anywhere, a mobile home park, anywhere that people need help to evacuate to a place of safety during the time of the storm.
I ended up evacuating a little bit over 200 people, some in wheelchairs, some just walking, and some just had their whole life in a bag. I mean, that was it.
Social media played such a crucial role during Hurricane Irma. We were able to communicate with all of our riders via Facebook and Twitter. It was very important, especially once the server went down, because it was our only lines of communication with our riders.
So after PSTA completed its evacuation operations, getting people to safe shelter locations, it was then time to make sure that our single greatest asset, the bus fleet, was also safe and protected from the storm. 210 buses were strategically relocated across the county to high ground areas which were safe from flooding. I'm pleased to report that the fleet experienced no damage, and this can be attributed to the proactive measures taken and, of course, the hard-working efforts of the men and women of PSTA.
All right, and just to recognize two of the superstars, not only from that video, but and this all again, we're just like a week removed from all of this, but from the actual around-the-clock, Jerry Lewis like telethon of just days and days of being here. We have our own PSTA's own Superintendent of Safety, Security, and Training, Mike Gloss, and then PSTA's Director of Maintenance, Henry Lakasic, who pulled off amazing efforts during the storm, preparing for meeting our needs, that type of thing. So let me give you a quick rundown, and again, stop me anytime if you all have any questions for me, or maybe you see a slide that kind of sparks something you want to ask about. So when we know a storm is on its way, obviously you have a lot of meteorologists that are coming on telling you, hey, we know where it's going to go. Look at the spaghetti forecast that's going all over the place. When we have an idea that it's swirling around the Caribbean and it's probably going to make landfall in the States, in Florida, somewhere, we start meeting right away. Way before we say, let's get out the hurricane plan, let's take a look at it. PSTA has a nearly 100-page hurricane plan that we update each year. It says what we're going to do to prepare, what will happen during, what will happen after, We kind of form our own little model, which I'll tell you about, just to prepare for this thing. So we start meeting. We say, okay, what's it doing? When are the EOC calls going to start? How are we prepared for supplies? That type of thing. We sit on Pinellas County. I don't know if you all know this, has an Emergency Operations Center, which what EOC stands for. That's a picture of it on a great day because it's empty. This is a picture on it, when disaster is looming. So, this would be a typical day. Maybe a hurricane is coming. They have their two major bulletin and digital display boards up front. It's just where all the entities can get together in the county and kind of plan and report back to their agencies. So it's a great way to make sure that all the relevant agencies and entities in the county are working together. They're talking to each other. Hey, how are we going to plan for this storm to get our residents, our folks, through this thing safely, and what are we going to do, and how are we going to work together? So that happens. Now, the PSA Hurricane Plan, again, we assemble, and we all have titles here. There's chiefs, there's directors, there's superintendents and managers, but we reestablish a hierarchy during the hurricane. Through FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security, and this became more, I think, relevant, closer to 911. A lot of these new terms broke off. So I don't know if anybody ever heard of NIMS, which is the National Incident Management System. Under NIMS, which was created through the federal government, there's a system called the Incident Command System, which a lot of police and fire and rescue still put into action right away. We do a version of that, so we will deputize 3 incident commanders to kind of be in charge of our hurricane operations here. This time it was Mike Lawson Henry in the back and our Director of Transportation, Jeff Thompson. Under them, we reestablished departments. So you have operations, logistics, finance, planning. You would say, why do you need to have a finance? Well, during the storm, purchasing needs go up. Do we need to have cash on hand? Does Henry need to, have the ability to, purchase fuel or building materials or items, or if we need to replace parts, if we need to open up purchasing agreements with Lowe's or Home Depot, that type of thing. So we start talking about what we need to do. If we can't get back to the building, how do we pay our employees to make sure they're okay? I think we even did like a day early payroll, so that the employees had ability to kind of go and prepare for the storm. So a lot of different things, and I'm not even really getting into the operations part, which I will, and hopefully you have questions about. Employee communications is huge. Right here is just a picture, but it depicts customer service representatives, maintenance staff, bus operators, and collective bargaining employees, which are the groups that I just named there, represent 484 employees out of nearly 600 employees here at PSTA. They work around the clock, 24/7, especially in maintenance, nearly 20-hour days. If you're a bus operator, customer service. We have some folks that report here. There's some folks that just report out on the street or go directly to Pinellas Park Transportation Center, Park Street, Grand Central Terminal to show up for work. So trying to get a hold of these folks and say, hey, here's what we're doing when Hurricane Irma makes landfall or is coming. If we're closed, call this hotline. Or if we're going to make adjustments to the hours, then pay attention to this email or this posted or this text. How do we do that? We use a bunch of different ways. We have the ability to send out a pre-recorded voicemail to people's phones. We send out mass group text to employees to let them know what's going on. Of course, email, and then just in this operations building over here, I will personally walk and just plaster the building. Like, pay attention to me, Hurricane Irma plan, make sure you have this information recorded. So that's for our employees. Customer communications, also challenging. A lot of different ways. We need to let our customers know that, yes, we are aware that a hurricane is looming. You know this. How does it affect our operation? People want to know, how do the service hours change? How long are you going to be running? What routes take me to a shelter? Do you have special shelter loop runs? That type of thing. So all kinds of ways again. We will try to post something behind the driver, the behind the seat notice, which says, this time on a Friday, I believe we send down to your department nearly 200 plus behind the seat driver notices that says service will be ending Saturday by 5 p.m., for example. And then we take to social media. We will put it on our website, psta.net. As you saw in that video, that was Alyssa from our media department. She, during the hurricane, was answering a lot of questions directly related to the service. How's it operating, that type of thing. When are you guys going to, we stopped running, it was Saturday at 5 p.m., not last, the Saturday before last, right? Yeah. Hurricane Irma has my calendar and internal clock going off. And then we didn't run Sunday, we didn't run Monday, and then we incrementally came back on service that following Tuesday. As far as what we're doing during that week leading up, we are tracking nonstop. So there's a group of us. We sit on our own little EOC here in the room. We'll have a big screen like this. We'll have the Weather Channel on. We'll have Bay News 9 on TVs all week long. Just picture, you would think we were just, trying to be weather experts, but we're just trying to get the latest information where this track is going to go. EOC has their own information from the Hurricane Operations Center. And so the beginning of those calls, 6-7 days out, oh, we're good. We're probably going to have sunshine that day. 1 to 2 inches of rain, a little bit of wind. Well, let's be on call. Then the next day, it's starting to shift westward. 2 days after that, oops, what's going on? Panic starts to set in, and that type of thing. So that obviously changes how we plan, how we're going to plan for service. Once we knew that, hey, listen, this is westward, it's going to start to go up the west coast, we have to secure the headquarters. We've got to plan for that, okay? This is a snapshot aerial view of our campus. We sit on 32 acres, okay? There's nearly 800,000 plus square feet of field between both buildings. All of our vehicles, our buses, what did I do? Okay, I'm trying to get fancy here. I won't ever do that again. On the right hand, this area right here, these are where all of our buses are parked, over 210 buses. Again, you want to secure buses. We're in a flood zone level B, so now there comes a time if we think we're going to flood out, we move the fleet. So we start talking about all of that, and actually we did move our buses, led by, again, Mike and Henry. We moved them to 3 locations of higher ground inside the county, and that was a whole operation in itself. So when you do that thing, all those decisions go into how soon we stop service, how many bodies do we need on hand, and keep in mind, we're also allowing employees to go home and secure their homes and board up, or in some cases, leave. But you still want to make sure you have enough employees here to run the operation. So there's a lot of on-the-spot decisions going on, and I can't give enough credit to the employees, the bus operators, maintenance personnel, and especially the ones who really stuck around, did the skeleton crew, stayed overnight, evacuated, which we'll see. Who really kind of helped us through this thing. This last picture you see, this is a picture of one of the longer corridors of our maintenance bay, and just bringing all the vehicles in so they, we can preserve those as best we can. Place is built. I think we decided this was a fortress of sorts, withstanding all kinds of tough winds, held up very well, and we didn't experience any flooding. Thank goodness on that. Evacuations. Again, through the EOC, we're responsible to help them out and to get folks from shelters. There's a homeless population in different areas where we work with different health and human service groups to identify, to get them to whatever approved, authorized, and open locations. Those were a lot of community centers, schools, you name it. They tell us where to show up, and we show up. And again, everything from dozens and dozens of wheelchair folks that are in mobile chairs and wheelchairs and assisted living facilities, and we were there. We accommodated a lot of different ways. And again, this is just another interior look, in the bus of folks that are going to a shelter. So again, I give all the credit to our employees and these folks for us coming together, knowing where the buses would be. For us, unfortunately, we don't get caught like this. I personally got caught like this because I'm a hurricane rookie. But we do plan and supply what supplies we're going to have every year before hurricane season starts. Canned foods, generators, extension cords, water, air mattresses, that type of thing, especially if we're going to spend the night here, to make sure we're sustained, to make sure we're energized, that we can deal with it. So, as you can probably imagine, and this was me actually going to Publix when I realized that something was going to happen. I was like, oh, there's no water, there's no bread or anything like that. So, but we do. We have a hurricane, supply stocked. And then comes to after the dust settles or the water recedes or whatever, and we, I believe we all agree we were fortunate, although there were folks that suffered some damage and were without power for days. Now we have to decide, how do we restart service and how do we communicate that with everybody? one, we have to get the operators back. So if you drove to Georgia or Alabama or Tennessee, there's people that weren't back yet. Get the word to them, report back Tuesday. Our admin people report back Tuesday. Now we work with the county. We want to put the buses back on the road. Are you okay with that? They'll say, yeah, we're okay, but PSDA, be mindful. We have all kinds of trucks out there restoring power. We don't want you to get in the way of that. We also have some areas that we have deemed unsafe. We have down power lines, down trees. So we work with them. We have light poles that are just out. So there's entire areas that are pitch dark. So their concerns and ours, and Mike voiced this very well, if you have an intersection with no traffic lights, we trust our operators to know that that defaults to a four-way stop, but a lot of folks will just blow through. So now, do we detour around that? There was, for the first couple of days, or first 2 or 3 days, we ran from dawn until dusk, meaning if we didn't have daylight, if it was totally dark, we didn't run those first few days, just for safety. It was just too dark to see, pedestrians, people crossing the road, that type of thing. So there's a lot of considerations on how to do that. At the same time, you're balancing this with getting that information out to customers who say, I was waiting here for a 6:20 bus, and I find out that bus doesn't show up to 8:15. So figuring out how to do that better. Again, social media was great for us, but we had an after-action debrief last week with the entire staff departments to say, hey, listen, what did we do well, which we think we did many things well, and what can we certainly improve on. So with that, I will stop it there, and just I'm happy to take questions, feedback, suggestions. Don't be fooled, I don't have a pen and paper. I will go back and look at the video and just, so get it out there, and I'll look at the video and see what you said. So, any questions? Comments?
Well, you
Yes,
answered
yes.
my question, and I saw the video, and I was the first one that liked it
Thank
on
you.
Facebook. And I was very moved that all these really great people took care of us, or took care of the situation. But you answered my question, how did they get to the shelters? Well, you were communicating with the
Emergency management.
well, no, and the people that were in charge of the homeless people, and telling you where to go and pick up all these people waiting to be evacuated. So that was the communication. They didn't have to go and hope at the corner that you would swing by.
Right.
They were told, all right, you've got somebody on the way, you guys just...
Exactly. We try to coordinate the best we can.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Those
Just so you know who
agencies.
sits on that AOC. It's a lot of the agencies. It's every city or town in Pinellas County. It's fire chiefs, it's
Yeah.
police chiefs, it's the school district, school buses, PSDA, hospitals. Every entity that would have anything to do with helping, make sure that the county's movement is in the right direction in terms of helping each other.
Right.
And it's coordinated through that EOC, that county.
I was impressed.
Thank you.
Other comments?
I'd like to say, that's a great, it feels really good to see both the EOC, the organization. I was really impressed to see the buses distributed, so if any one spot got flooded, or
Sure.
even two, that it was split up. That was great. I drove by Clearwater High and saw 30 buses out in the parking lot, and immediately thought, boy, you guys are on the ball. As an outreach, I talk to a lot of folks. I'm like an ambassador, right, for PSTA. I really would like to understand about how the homeless population or the disabled, what kind of places were we picking them up at? Churches, YMCA, or
Homeless shelters.
homeless shelters. So the one,
Like Safe Harbor over here, stuff
Right.
like that. The different homeless shelters would spread the word to the population.
Just say, "Come in."
To stay there, and then they would contact the EOC, and our person sitting there would relay it back to us, and we would send buses over to pick them up and take them to whatever shelter they had to go.
so you would be running them to the local shelter?
Yes.
And at that point, you'd be running the buses more like dial-a-ride, or like a taxi. You'd be going from here to the shelter and back, rather than on any. So they'd all say out of service or.
Correct.
Excellent. Okay, that's great. Then my last question was, I remember from Katrina, I don't know, was it 12 years ago, 10 years ago, folks getting on buses to run out of town once we knew the town was being flooded. Is there any discussion about that, or a fear?
Yeah, when I first got down here, because I wasn't living here during Katrina, and I was picturing, okay, all hurricane evacuations are
Yeah.
us having, because, and by the way, we have a list of volunteers for operators that sign up earlier in the year before hurricane season that we know we can go to do that type of mission, and then we ask for different volunteers. And Mike, you may answer this better than me, having lived here and lived through several, if it ever came to that, would we be on one of those one-way missions where buses would load up with people and just leave and not come back?
They actually did a simulation on that, and it would have to be a one-way mission.
Got it.
Because, I mean, just out of Pinellas County, you're evacuating over 1 million people.
Right.
It's almost astronomical.
Okay.
And that's why, you know, the EOC sent out the evacuation notices a week early.
Right.
That's why the governor declared emergency a week early, so that he wanted people to get out of here as quick as possible, so that it would be easier instead of everybody going at once.
Exactly.
What they would do at that point is open up all the expressways to be one directional on both sides. And there are plans somewhere deep in the archives on using every piece of equipment we have here.
Right.
To get people out one thing.
That's a big just in case. Okay.
Yeah.
The name of that process, by the way, some of you all may know, is called contraflow lane reversal. And Georgia went to it during this hurricane for Interstate 16, where they thought they were going to have to evacuate people out of Savannah, and then they canceled it. So once I was driving up to Georgia from Florida at midnight, and by the time I got to Georgia, they had state police at every exit and guiding you. So don't exit here, go here. If you wanted to hop on I-16, both lanes of the interstate were just going one direction. They eventually canceled it. Same way, guiding back the people, good people from Florida. There were just some exits in Georgia where they were like, no, keep going. Just keep going. So, you know, it's interesting to see how the different states kind of, I have to imagine we probably would have gone to that too had it been necessary. Because I thought about that myself. We didn't utilize.
It was a Hurricane 5.
Okay. Yeah.
Then one last
go ahead.
question. I'm
Yeah,
very
please.
interested, because it's the kind of thing that I would be telling people about, like feel comfort.
Sure.
They're bringing stuff with them, a suitcase, right? This is not like normal PSTA, so
Right, yeah, you saw in that video, I think we had a shot of different bags and stuff. I mean, I think it was all that people could carry, and we do our best to, you know, accommodate
the
that.
best on it last time. Some people had their entire life with them. So we stopped nothing.
just, if the bus is full, we'll just run another bus at this point. That kind of, so
If we
real
get it-
common sensey
if we
solution.
get it through the door and in there, we'll take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm real happy. That's a great presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, no, my pleasure, thank you. What else?
Okay, well, I'm sorry. Okay, because Richard has something, and I know Josh has one. Or Richard, go ahead.
Sure. I was just wondering if any of the city or county curfews impacted PSTA service.
The curfews didn't impact us at all. I think what would happen is our discussion on EOC would be, you know, for example, on the coastline, if they were going to forbid additional traffic or tourists to come in, we talked about how the PSDA's.
A curfew does affect us once they did close the islands down, all the different beaches. And at a certain point, we were no longer allowed to go over there because they didn't want us to bring people over. So once they shut the beach areas down completely, then we were curfewed down there.
And actually, let them know, actually, to one point, I hope I'm not making this up, like we were going over the Memorial Bridge. Weren't our buses stopped just so that local enforcement had a chance to talk to the folks and say, look, we're trying to close this down.
Yes.
What are you coming over here for? Are you just coming to hang out, or do you live here, or what?
Later, I think it was Saturday afternoon, around 3 o'clock, they started stopping every bus and then questioning who was on the bus to go over there. And then someplace at 5 o'clock when we shut down, that was it.
They were stopping people on Friday going over the Treasure Island Causeway, as early as Friday around noon. Now, if you had the pass, we had re-entry passes from Derek, and if you showed your license, they'd let you go. But they were trying to stop people from going to the beach. You know, and they closed some of the establishments. They had electric and everything because they wanted people to get serious. You know, we got to go now, and don't everybody leave
Right.
at the same time.
Josh, you had a question.
Yes, I was just interested if you could speak to how Care Ride operated.
Sure.
And maybe their experience through the whole process.
Care Ride, we're going to have an after action with them because we saw some improvements we can make just from the continuity of operations standpoint. So Care Ride tends to, they mirror what we're doing service-wise up to the hour. So if we're going to close or suspend service at 5 o'clock, like we did Saturday, Care Ride also does the same thing. And from here, we'll try to administer that with the customers, and we'll use what we call reverse 911. So we'll record a message, and we'll get it out to all the Care Ride customers, and we'll say, please be advised of the following changes in service availability. And then Care Ride from their end, they'll do the same thing. So they mirror us in terms of operating hours. And also, you know, they use X amount of their vehicles to also do evacuations as well. So then there's that kind of balance. One of the things we saw with power going down, PSA thankfully didn't lose power, Care Ride did. So one of the things we want to make sure we work with Care Ride is, one, how do we get you prioritized for power restoration? Two, how are you for generators? And three, can we move your operation over here? Because when we discovered that, it was like, well, move over here. And I said, well, you know, they're like, we can't, our network's over, you know, on that side. So there's some opportunities for improvement there, but I think they did the best they could. They were stressed. They vented said stress to me. And I just worked with them the best I could. I said, thank you, hang in there, Care Ride, because I know they were up against it too. But they had challenges.
School buses were used for evacuations also. Do you know how or why a PSTA bus versus a school bus would have been prioritized or sent to a different location?
That's a good question. And these guys were on the EOC, so I'm going to defer to them to answer.
I didn't hear any question.
So the question was, school buses were also, Mr. Schulman asked, school buses were also used, and how are they determined to be used as opposed to PSTA buses for evacuations?
The way it's set up basically is the school buses do a lot of the special needs transportation. We do mass evacuation. Then there's also, ELC bought a group, a couple of buses that actually are designed to carry 20-plus passengers in wheelchairs all at the same time. So there's different groups out there, and what they do is they look at what the evacuation area is, what clientele we're going to get, and then they'll determine which system send. Some of them, all of us would show up there, you know, whoever had available buses would go there. So it's kind of a mix and match, and just as long as we get somebody there to take care of it. But there are people at the EOC that they juggle back and forth.
I have a couple comments. For me, it was the communication afterward. You know, the Tuesday after the storm. I went to the website, and the website did not. My understanding is Facebook and those did have information. But I saw in the video from Melissa that when the server went down, is that why the website didn't have current
Yeah, possibly. We discovered just how great and wonderful our server is, and as a precaution, we took our own server down just to, if we thought we had flooding, could it cause more damage? We opened our eyes to how many other things that impacts and affects. You know, took down our hotline, our hurricane hotline we set up. So we're going to. We were working on a way to figure a way around that so we can do that better.
Because the other thing, the real-time system did not have anything other than just kind of like, that's right, there's no current information. Right. And so, I was trying to get that. And then the other thing, interestingly, I'm not sure how I ended up on the email list for HART, but I was getting email blasts from HART.
Sure.
But I wasn't getting them anything from PSTA. And I was wondering, is there some way that we can ultimately, as members of the TRAC, get email blasts from PSTA? And I mean, maybe that's the kind of thing riders want as well.
Yes. And we discussed that, and Cassandra, if you want to comment on that more, if I leave something out, we did discuss ways to get that information out to folks, especially that sit on our group lists, a little bit more effectively in a way that we're not, something doesn't go down and prevent us from doing that, as well as some other additional communications. But I'm thinking more of the internal. What did I miss on that discussion? I had, in terms of efforts that we were going to make to kind of get more information out to the customers more consistently.
I think the biggest thing is just making sure we've got a backup as a server so we can get emails out.
Yeah.
And that's the heart of it. And some things you don't know until you know them. And I think that was one of the number one. I'm glad you brought that up. One of the number one things that we said, okay, we will definitely do this part. Yes.
And if I may say, in our budget, which we're working on this next year in 2018 for 2019, we actually have in our 5-year plan to put a server, set everything up in the EOC itself, which is a Cat 5 building. So we may want to accelerate that or use a pre-award authority that will be funded by FTA to do that. So I think that'll answer some of the things that we went through in this one.
All right, well, thanks,
Anything else?
everybody.
Thank you, James.
I do need to.
Oh, okay.
Just before I go, I wanted to just give you a couple other updates on things. We submitted our Central Avenue BRT package to the Federal Transit Administration. It was due Friday, September 9th. We not only did it on time, we did it early.
Oh, wow.
On the 8th, and so that was pretty good news. We also recently got news, I believe, at the end of last week, maybe the beginning of this week, it was all blurring together, that we won $1 million for our electric bus program from the Federal Transit Administration, the FTA low and no emission vehicle program. I think we asked for $5 million, and we got $1 million, but it was a lot. It was about 55 agencies across the country got something. Some got a little more than us, some got a little less. But we're excited about that, and we'll put it towards our total program. I'm sort of deciding how we're going to spend that. And then, if you're interested, Forward Pinellas will be holding a vehicle technology forum on September 28th from 9 to 12 at Ruth Eckert Hall. They are asking that you RSVP, but you can find that on the Forward Pinellas website under their calendar. Registration starts at 8:30, and that's the September 28th. Sorry.
Yeah, Sandra's heavily, but,
Did they break ground at the Clearwater Beach? They were supposed to.
The construction company has started work,
They
but
did.
they have some design work that they need to take care of, and then they'll turn some dirt.
Because it was supposed to be the 7th. I just wondered.
It's
if that was
been
delayed.
rescheduled, the event has been rescheduled
Okay.
for October 5th at 9:30. Yes, sorry about that, should have mentioned that as well.
thank you. Sandra has to leave, but we're not ending the meeting quite yet because we wanted to give the opportunity for member comments yet. So what I'd like to do then is see if anyone has any member comments.
Generally, any kind of comment or
Yes,
question?
absolutely.
I've been looking at this every meeting, and I don't like the way the numbers are going.
In terms of ridership?
Yeah, with my middle school math and graph reading, numbers are going down, and I want to go have a plus sign. And it's negative 6.1 and negative 12.2 other passenger trips. Well,
I know sometimes it depends on the number of weeks and what things are going
Okay.
on, but I don't know.
all right,
Without Cassandra here or
yeah,
without Brad, I can't really address
Right.
it.
Yeah, I mean, we do see a little bit of a dip during the summer months, so we might be seeing some of
so
that.
that's what's looking discouraging, and if I wait a couple months, I'll see more pluses.
You should see it go up. I think the national trend was ridership was kind of going down nationally a little bit too, not just us. So for whatever reason, people aren't scared off enough at the gas tanks. We also have other different programs. Although I don't know that would impact us. Some of our
In August, we did see an increase, so.
Yeah. So, we might see an uptick during the school months and, as we get back, to the season, especially once we start seeing, our folks from New England and other northern areas come back down here too. We do see an increase. But yeah, around this time, it's not unusual.
All right.
Sorry.
No, that's fine, that's fine. No, but I'm glad that, that people are looking at that too,
Because our whole
and for all of us to
goal
keep
is-
thinking about,
Yeah.
we all do want to see ridership go up. We
Yeah.
do believe in PSTA, and so I'm sure having our ideas go to, talk to Cassandra, talk to Brad, talk to James, and see, if you have ideas, pass that on.
Exactly. No, but that was good that you observed that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, any other member comments? Well, I wanted to say real quickly, because I was traveling this past month, and I was, we always give our reports of what we've seen in different places. And a couple interesting things that I saw, I was in Estonia, Denmark, and Ireland. And, they were all more metro areas, and so there was good public transportation in all of those. The one thing that was really pretty neat was in Tallinn, Estonia, they had a test going of their driverless, their autonomous buses service there. And what I did check into is they do have a wheelchair ramp, but I have an email to the man that runs the program to find out, well, if it's autonomous, how does somebody let them know that you need to put the ramp down, and also how do you hook up a wheelchair? Yeah. I don't know that, and so I've got an email. Hopefully, I'll get an answer on that. But apparently that was a test, and that vehicle came from France. Okay. I guess they manufacture those in France, and so and they did the test for the month of August. They deemed it to be a successful test, although again I asked in email what were your criteria for success, but they are going to expand it to another city for next year, so they're looking to budget it, and they're doing it in conjunction with their membership in the EU, so they're trying to pass on that information to the other EU countries as well.
I actually have a colleague of mine that he just got hired by Keolis. He's chief of innovation, and one of his jobs are autonomous vehicles, bringing them into the States. So I'll give him a call too, and I can get you to answer your question. Our industry's annual conference is coming up next month, I believe. It's up in September in Atlanta. That's the big 3-year event, the big expo, where all these different vehicles and technology come. So maybe while we're down there, we can get some pictures for you all and kind of let you know what's coming down the pike. So just picture, you ever see those car shows or the newest innovative shows? Just picture that with buses in a big open Coliseum or whatever those big venues are. And maybe we'll try to get some pictures for you and show you some neat things that maybe are headed your way and report back to you.
I think this is a group that would love to hear that. I
Yeah,
think that we're all
it strikes me that you all might
travel.
be interested in that. So
yeah, we do.
I'll try to get some good pictures.
So, and again, in all those places where I went, they all had rail as well as buses and trolleys, so they had, a combination of things, just like when FDOT was talking about, well, having multiple different types of delivery of transportation. I think Europe, well, here in the U.S. too, in cities, they do have a lot of the combination of.
I was watching the TV news one night, and they were showing parts of Houston. I'm sorry, and they had a light rail vehicle going down the road down in Houston. I thought, all right, how about Tampa?
Yeah.
And also, too, I happen to get involved a little bit and studying how things get funded. And I know Dallas, Texas had a problem years ago with funding like we do now. People going down and they organized some money that came through and to start the project. Once they started the project, people were voting for increases. Right. And they just recently voted to connect 2 light rail lines so they go further across the city and build a subway in Dallas, Texas.
You see that happen in Dallas and Denver as well, and I think once folks have allowed the initial light rail building to come in, and they also see the billions of dollars it can bring in investments, because once you invest in that light rail, it's not going anywhere. So builders aren't afraid to build around it, vertical development, walkable, towns. I forget the exact terminology. So then usually the extension, just as you said, is it comes a little bit easier because people say, well, we like this. We can get more of this. You can connect these 2 places. That's great. So you're absolutely right.
And
it's getting in there.
One other thing, I think everybody here knows who Barbara Hasselton is.
Yes.
She's running for office.
Yeah, I just read an article. She's running for county commission. Those elections are in November 2018.
God help us.
All my best. All my best.
Why is that?
All my best to her and anyone else.
Barbara Hasselton was the one who spearheaded No Tax for TRAC.
Oh.
And managed to defeat Green Light Pinellas.
Wow.
A lot of things defeated Green Light Pinellas.
Yeah.
What?
A lot of things defeated Greenlight Pinellas, but.
Well, I mean, she was vocal, and that group was, I know particularly that they were out there tearing up signs that I was putting up. They were standing on street corners screaming, no taxes, no taxes.
Dave, we don't want to revisit that, though. It's too many nightmares. I hear what you're saying, but listen, all my best to her and anyone else who wants to serve the county. So
exactly, it's a 7-man
Maybe
board.
she'll be converted.
Maybe.
And other people we need to, so they can get over that hump that you're talking about in Houston when people finally said, oh, it is a good idea. And then they started to support it. I'm sorry, I'm out of line.
No, here's another thing, is when you talk about the funding. I brought this along too, because when I was in Estonia, in Tallinn, there's an article about the Tallinn experiment, what happens when the city makes public transport free.
Yeah.
And they actually, if you are a resident of the city of Tallinn, your public transportation is free. If you're not a resident, if you're from the surrounding areas, then there's a fee, or if you're a tourist, there's a fee. But the residents actually, and they do it in terms of a whole funding source. And like with anything like that, there are some people who say it was just a ploy by a guy who was trying to, be reelected as mayor, and others have said, oh no, it's been the best thing for, industry. But yeah, so they have free transport. I think we should too.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Let me say, I'm gonna miss next meeting, I'm starting my trip, and I'll be in Washington, New York, Pittsburgh, so you guys.
And you'll be reporting on all of what you see there too.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah, bring us back
You got it.
your observations.
What's been
That'd be
going on?
good.
I don't have any other notes in terms of future meeting subjects. Any other comments?
This
Yes.
is from earlier. We were talking about the special events, the extra buses that they're running. Is there a way that they're going to advertise that so that people know ahead of time, like with the event, when the events are coming out? Because like the summer bus that ran, a lot of people didn't know about that at all. Not
You're
just
absolutely right. And the same thing was true with
Just
the
letting
Earth Day.
people know.
Yeah, Earth Day, they didn't announce the free ride thing either, or when people were going down to Earth Day.
Oh, right.
I agree with you. Yeah, it's about communication of
Oh,
the
absolutely,
programs. Yeah.
absolutely. I think we're going to get on top of that. Our media marketing department is really calendared and outlined events, and this past year I think we were trying to get it a lot better.
I was wondering if they could like advertise it when they're doing their promotions
Sure.
for the thing.
Oh, yeah.
Just write in their major promotions.
Yes.
that,
Okay.
PSCA is offering.
Right. Okay. I'll bring that up to our media and marketing department. Thank you.
Anyone else? Then I would say the meeting will be adjourned. Our next meeting will be on October 17th, here at 4 o'clock. And gosh, thank you again for coming to our meeting.
Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing you.
Sorry I was late.
Thanks, everyone. Good day.
Thank you.
Thanks for a great presentation.
Input on that.
So, good, how are you? I'll just come in.
Questions?
No.
And I'm coming down here.
I'll just
I don't
take a
even-
CAC. Okay, great. Guided down.